we're going to be creating a basic first-person controller with both character movement and camera movement here. So we're going to start off with an empty scene, and our first node for it is going to be a character body 3D. This will act as a container for everything my player is going to do, while also letting me move it with my scripts and apply physics to it. Inside of my character body, we're going to do a mesh instance 3D, followed by a collision shape 3D. Now, if they go nested like this, just drag it so the mesh and the collision are on the same level. Now, for both of these, we're going to use just a capsule shape. Doesn't matter what order we do them in, just make sure that they're both capsule and they're both the same size. If we pay close attention to our origin, it's going to be in the dead center of our body. So we can just move our entire character body 3D. Now for our player movement, we're at a good spot, but since we're thinking about the camera movement as well, we're going to add a couple more nodes to our tree. One of those nodes is going to be just a normal node 3D, and this is going to act as our neck. So I'll just call this neck so it's a little bit easier to see. And it's going to be the neck or the pivot point for our camera, which I can put as a child of the neck. Looking in the graphics window, we're going to see that everything's coming out of basically the belly button, but we want to move it up a little bit. So I can just take that entire neck node and move it somewhere up about eye level for our character. I could save this. I'll just call this our player here as a scene. I can take that player I just saved and drop him into an existing scene and maybe just move him up a little bit so he's off the floor. And when I hit play here, now we're going to see it out of the character's eyes, but hit all my keys, move my mouse, nothing actually happens. So let's start moving this thing with code. So switching back to the player scene here, we want to create a new script for our character body 3D. So I can attach a script. And what's nice about using the character body 3D is we actually can have a basic movement template already applied. And that's what we're going to start with here. So when I hit create, we're already going to have information about our speed, our jump velocity, and we can move around. So now if I go back to that other scene, I can go left, right, forward, back, and spacebar to jump. So we're already one step there. But that's bound to the arrow keys, and we probably want that on the W, A, S, and D key. And that's really simple for us to apply. To change what commands we're actually using to apply our inputs, if we go to project settings, then our input map, and we're going to add a couple of new actions. So we'll do move left, move right, move forward, move backwards. With each of these, then we can press a plus sign next to it to add an event and just hit our keystroke. So A for left, D for right, forward, and backward. So we're just applying those and modifying and adding them to our project so we can select them later. Now with those in place, for our input direction, for our input vector, for UI left, right, up, and down, we'll just change those to move left, move right, and then move forward and move backwards. So this time, when we actually play this and we take a look, now my W, A, S, and D keys are going to do something for me. In order for us to use our mouse to move our camera around, we're going to have to add a new function to this script. So we'll come down to the bottom here, and we're going to make use of the input function here. So it's going to capture input event and allow us to do certain things based on this function. Inside of this function, we're going to check to see if the input coming in, so if event is an input event mouse button, that's just making to see if I'm pressing a mouse button, then I'm going to say that input dot mouse mode is equal to input dot mouse mode capture. So when I click a button, it's going to capture my mouse and trap it on the screen. This is going to be useful for us here to actually get the movement. Now, if I want to do the opposite, and I want to be able to get my mouse free of the game and allow me to hit the X button or do whatever I need to, I'll do an else if the event dot is action pressed, and we're just going to use the UI cancel. So the escape key by default here is going to get us out of this. So if we do that, then we're going to do this same input mouse mode, but it's going to be visible. So hit escape and it's going to let me have control over my mouse and the game won't be reading the inputs from it. So now that we're able to capture the mouse movements and hit escape to get rid of it, we want to do something with that. So if our input dot mouse mode underscore captured is happening. So if we're capturing those mouse movements, we want to be able to do something. And that something is going to be rotating the neck and rotating our camera, whether it is up, down, left, or right, so we can move around. But we have no way to control that yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to the top of our code, and somewhere towards the top, I like to do it above my constants, is we're going to say at onReady var neck is colon equals 2, and then we're going to grab that neck from our player. So it's going to take this neck node, that node 3D, and assign it to our var neck. And we're going to do the same thing for camera. So onReady var colon equal, and I'll grab that camera 3D. It'll just make our lives a little bit easier than having to redeclare it every single time. So with those two defined, we can move back down to our input function and start working on it. So if our input.mouseMode captured is true, we're going to do something. And we can check to see if the event is input event mouse motion. So we're going to check if the event that's happening is my mouse moving, and then if it is the mouse moving, we're going to do something. And what we're going to do first is we're going to do neck dot rotate Y. So we're going to take our neck and rotate it, and we're going to do the opposite of the event dot relative dot X and set it to some sensitivity value. Now I like to set this to 0, 0, and 5. But you'll play around with this and find one that you like, and you might even just put a slider in your game. Now we're going to do the same thing for our camera, so I'll just copy and paste that, and we'll say that camera.rotate, but rather than the Y, we're going to do X, and it's going to be relative Y. So camera.rotate X minus event.relative.Y by that same value. And then lastly, what I want to do is just make sure that these are going to be in a certain boundary, because if we let it go unbounded, we can start basically spinning our neck through infinity. So I'll bound that camera dot rotation dot X, and we're going to clamp that. So making sure that it's between two things, and we'll say that it's between, for the camera dot rotation dot X between degree to radian, we're going to say minus 60, and then the upper boundary is going to be degree to radian, and we'll say 60 again. So again, we're going to check to make sure that we are in mouse mode captured. We're going to check to make sure that we're in motion with our mouse, and then we're going to start rotating things around. And we'll save this. We'll go back to that other world. We'll play it. At this point now, I can move around, rotate my character, and move freely. Now, when we're moving around in 3D with this script, we're going to notice that even though I'm pressing forward, I'm still moving to the right. And if I do the same thing, look in the other direction, I continue to move that direction. So we can change this pretty easily in our script. And we're going to have to go back to the player movement where we had our input direction and we've modified those. We're actually going to change the variable declaration for just the direction. Now, first thing I'm going to do is clear that colon, and then we're just going to do neck.transform.basis times vector 3 for our direction that we're setting. So now when I come back in, we can move our camera freely, and we're going to move that player in the same direction. So I can continue to press forward, and it's going to move with our camera.